Alright, so who wants to go first?
You. I want to hear all the shit.
Hear all the shit.
Also, don't hog my mayonnaise. Give it back.
Gross. Here, take your gross ass. Mayonnaise shit. Can't you really call that mayonnaise, I feel like.
Veganese.
This should just be called white goop.
White goop? Yeah, that's basically what it is. It tastes like mayonnaise, but it's not made from eggs, so.
I will never understand why vegans spend so much time trying to replicate the food
because I miss
that they don't want to eat.
It's not that I don't want to eat the food, it's I do want to eat the food. I don't want to kill the animals. I don't want an animal to suffer for my well-being. So if I can make a good substitute without the suffering in it, I'll do that. Yeah.
I suppose I see that, but like, I guess it's just the symbology of it. Like I'm not going to kill this cow, but I'm still going to prepare it and shape it in the same way that other cows are killed and make it taste like killed cow.
But it's not a killed cow.
But it's not a killed cow.
An animal didn't suffer for me to eat it. It's not that I don't want to eat a cow. Cows are freaking delicious.
Yeah.
But, you know, I don't want a cow to suffer its entire short life just so I can eat it for 5 minutes and then forget about it later, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. It's just like, I guess the morality train, I guess for everybody, the morality train has to stop somewhere. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Because, I mean, anything has to suffer in order to consume it. So, like for me, I feel like I would be doing that cow an injustice by not making sure that it got used and prepared in the right way and that it just didn't go to waste.
If a cow was like, you know, if it wasn't doing well and you wanted to use the cow for the meat, totally understand, but we use up, what is it? It's like it's so ridiculous the amount of water that it takes to make 1 pound of meat.
Yeah.
So it's like there's an eco-friendly part of it too.
Yeah.
But
you'll never hear me disagree that I think we eat too much meat. I think
it's not that I'm like, I mean, I don't think that, and again, I don't think an animal should suffer for my well-being, but if someone else believes that, that's fine. What I have a problem with is how we mass produce these animals, and it all started because of the fast food industries, because like butchering animals used to be seen as a very high profession.
Yeah.
You know, and we actually like took care of the cows, and like we didn't feed them corn so we could quickly fatten them up, so we could quickly slaughter them and put them in you know, grocery stores.
Yeah. You know, that's a hard one, because it's like, if we didn't start mass producing food in this way, our civilization wouldn't have come to be what it is. You know what I mean? Like,
I understand that.
You know, so it's like a weird catch-22 in a way too.
Sometimes you gotta make mistakes though to you know, like fix them.
Yeah.
And again, I know that like giving up meat for some people is just not feasible, but I think it's important for people to be conscious of where their food is coming from.
I agree, because my fear, especially with this kind of like this new market for creating substitutes for things, is
you don't know what's in it.
Not only do you not know what's in it, like this is the only aspect of I think we've talked about how big of a fan of Star Trek I am.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the only aspect of Star Trek that I really hope never really happens. Is, at least not to me. I understand why it's feasible and why it would work to help the world, but like the characters on there, they can have replicated food. Like they can have a replicator like literally transform, you know, molecules into the food they want. Mm-hmm. So none of them like almost nobody has eaten like real food in almost 100 years.
I remember you mentioning that.
Like I remember like there's an episode they're like, wow, that's actually like real chicken meat. Like, and I'm like, I don't know. And like we're seeing this now like with the Beyond Meats and all this stuff where it's like, yeah, now they're saying like, yeah, I've seen commercials for it all the time. Like you can have this and it's not even really meat. It's just, but what is it? What is it? What are you feeding me? Like, and I don't know. Like I don't want to live in this world where everything is just a shadow of what the real thing is. I would rather compromise and massively like downgrade but have the real thing. Like I would rather be forced to only be allowed to eat meat once a month than to go and eat nothing but fake like impossible burgers and impossible stuff for the rest of my life. Like,
yeah. And that's why I'm not 100% plant-based, right? Like
yeah.
I still there's times where I will revert to being like, okay, I'm full on vegan, like no animal products at all, no honey, no like anything. And then there's times like how I'm in right now where I've been eating fish recently.
Yeah.
But I don't eat I don't have any kind of dairy or eggs because it really upsets my stomach if I do.
Yeah.
So I think it's again just being aware of how much you're consuming, and I don't know, it's like
I agree.
Yeah.
I've also just like come to this thought of like we're kind of like brainwashed from such a young age to like to be told that like our urges as human beings are like somehow bad and they need to be tempered and controlled at all times and like and suppressed.
What do you mean by that?
So like it is just an empirical fact that humans are omnivores. Like we have the genetics and the bodies to consume meat, not to the degree that we do, but we are omnivores. Like we are very much built, and our bodies need that, right? But like we kind of find ourselves wanting to deny ourselves this in order for the better. We feel that somehow like denying some of these like primal aspects of ourselves is somehow the road to being more healthy and more civilized and more advanced as a human, right? It's like I can be just as good as any other human while also being more civil. And I'm not saying that you're saying this, but like the kind of the mindset is like while being more civilized and not having to kill things at the same time. But like that's just such a primal part of our existence in a way.
Okay, but then I'll bring up this, like we don't we don't like take a chicken and just eat it. We have to prepare it, right? Does any omnivore that you know do that?
But there's a reason for that, right? That's the reason why we got so smart. Because we started cooking our food, which meant that we got more calories, which meant that our brains grew bigger. So though we lost the ability to be able to process raw meats, the trade-off is that our brains got bigger. So there are trade-offs, right? Like we even see that in some chimpanzees. Some chimpanzees do warm up their food to some extent. So.
But do you think that? I mean, even though that we did that, many, many long years ago, if we've become smarter, don't you think that, it's okay that some people use that ability to try to, I don't know if it's, evolve, but try to come up with a different solution, I say.
Do. I'm just, curious, again, where does the train stop, I guess is my question. Because I bring that up because it's I feel like all my life, not the pounds, but I feel like all my life, that's just kind of what we're told. We're always told about what aspects of our humanity we have to deny ourselves of, right? Can't have sex until you do this. You can't do this, do this. You can't drink until you do this. You can't do this. No.
I agree.
And there's a lot of that I think that, if it was just, if we were taught to how to, moderate ourselves and, I feel like, again, to make another Star Trek reference, I feel like internally, we humans are trying to become like Vulcans, these people who just have absolute and total control over their emotions and their instincts and their abilities, and they're completely in control. And to me, that sounds so boring.
Yeah, I agree.
That sounds so boring.
I agree. Yeah. I mean,
this is coming from like a pretty even-tempered kind of person, you know, like, but that just sounds so awful to me. So like, so what I find myself saying is
again,
like,
going back to the gray blob thing, like
Yeah.
it's, you know, you don't want to be like looking.
yeah.
and
So like,
acting exactly
the
same.
reason I bring that up, and I went on this kind of like a little bit of a tangent, because like my issue is like, and what I guess what I like the hard time my brain has processing is when you say, I want to do this, I want to have a cheeseburger, I just choose not to because of all these reasons. Like, you know what I mean? Like man, like denying that want, you know, is,
Well,
I can see if you were just like, I don't even care about it. Like, I don't even have a taste for it anymore.
I think the problem for me comes with the way that we're taught about food growing up, because like I've said to there have been kids in my classroom before, like younger kids, and they don't know that when they're eating chicken, it's a chicken. Like, they don't make that connection. I remember my sister didn't do that either when she was young. She didn't realize that when she was eating a burger, that is cow.
Oh, yeah.
Because we never put like the process, we don't tell people what the process is that these animals go through. Instead, we put happy cartoon cows and, you know, eat more chicken and that sort of thing. So I think a problem with me is that now that I've seen all of these things, because I didn't know about this, and just when you find out, it kind of shocks you. Now the thought of eating that stuff makes me feel not okay. It makes me feel sick. It's not that people are telling me, oh, if you eat that, you're a bad person. It's no, I've watched that, and I don't feel good about eating an animal like that.
So you've seen like all those videos and things.
Yes.
And that's like, it really turned you.
Yeah, it really, it just kind of upsets me, because I don't like the idea that some animals are good and others are food. If that makes sense. Like, why are dogs and cats pets, and these ones we just decided they're not pets, they're food? You know?
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, I would just say that's just like the natural aspect of like how of different you know, different civilizations.
But it's like, why
in
do
other countries dogs are food?
Exactly.
Right?
Well,
and like in India, cows are pets, right? You cannot eat beef in India.
Right. But it's like there's so many people who eat cow all over the world that it's so mass produced.
Yeah, and honestly, that's why it's food, because it's real easy to mass produce, and they produce a lot of protein.
It's not even that it's easy to mass produce, it's that we found a way to mass produce it, and now it's been kicking our butt with all the resources that it requires.
Yeah, but I would agree that there is a level of efficiency to it. Like, I think that if there was another animal that was more efficient to grow and to mass produce its meat for food.
Chicken is very easy.
And it's like the second most eaten meat in the world, right? So like, it's right there. But I'm saying, like, you know, like if there was something that was easier,
actually,
better
goat
to
is
do,
the most eaten meat in the
Is
world,
it really?
aside from fish.
From fish? Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
No.
I thought it was chicken.
Nope, it's goat.
Okay, interesting. I've never had goat.
Goat's actually good. I've had it before.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I feel like it'd be tough.
It is. It's tough, but it's like... How do I describe it? It's kind of like... If the flavor of chicken was the texture of beef, but tougher. If that makes sense.
The flavor of chicken was the texture
But it
of
didn't
beef.
have the texture of chicken.
Okay.
It's just like a lighter
Yeah.
meat, but it's chewier.
Okay. I can see what you're talking about.
Maybe. maybe I didn't describe that well, but...
No, I think I get what you mean. I think I get it. Okay. We always get into this vegan talk. I have no qualms against vegans. It's just like...
I know you don't.
Food is like my red line.
Food is sacred to a lot of people,
Yeah.
and that's why, like, people get very upset when...
Well, yeah, I mean,
because
it's the thing that keeps us alive. It's like the thing that keeps us going.
It's the thing that keeps us alive, but there's also, like, traditions.
Yeah,
there's like
traditions
family
too.
recipes. You don't want to... There's like around the holidays, everyone eats a turkey, everyone eats a ham, you know, like there's traditions and things that you don't want to get rid of because it's like personal to you, you know?
And also, I'm just like so depressed. Like most of the time, like you're not taking my food away from me. Like you can take anything else away from me, but I'm gonna eat this pizza, whether you want me to or not. So like,
That reminds me, I found a new vegan cheese the other day that actually doesn't taste like shit.
Really? Okay.
It doesn't taste like cheese.
Okay.
But I mean, I don't know if you've had vegan cheese before, but it has this really nasty aftertaste, and like all vegan cheese I've tried for the most part. But this vegan cheese does not have that aftertaste. And I'm like, oh. So I made like a grilled cheese, and I was like, finally!
Like, finally, I can have some grilled cheese.
Yeah.
Alright, well, enough about veganism. You can be your vegan self, it's fine. I just like talking about it every once in a while. You like my friend Emily, she's another vegan.
Some vegans are whack, though, dude.
No, some are. She's like, well, she's just weird with food.
I should be like whack. Maybe I am, and I don't realize it. Like,
no, you're definitely not whack.
I'm a vegan. I also am. I try to be as low waste as I can be. I'm a woman. Like I feel like I should just be insane, shouldn't I?
No, because the vegans that are whack are like the ones who wear their veganism as some kind of badge of honor. And I'm like, you're not better than me because you're choosing not to eat meat. Like that's just your choice. It's no better or no worse than I. But there are some people who believe that like they are doing like God's work by denying themselves, you know, meat. And I'm like, good for you.
Oh man, there's this YouTube channel. Do you know the YouTube channel? I think it's, what is it called? Jubilee, and they have people like cross the line of like, do you agree, do you disagree? Well, anyways, they always have things like, do all women think the same? Do all people with autism think the same? Like different things like that. One of them they did was, do all vegans think the same? And they had like this one dude. Well, like this one girl was. What was their question? I think it was like, are there exceptions for people to eat meat? And this one girl went to agree. And she was saying, you know, I've been in very cold areas where there's literally like a food desert and you can't find anything except, you know, you can't find vegan options there. And then this dude was like, wait, you mean like you couldn't even find like kale?
See, that's another problem with it, right? For some people it really is like this elitist thing.
It's like, you mean to tell me that, like, you couldn't even find, like, one piece of spinach? It's like, dude, you're literally in, like, Alaska.
Yeah.
You know?
And there is a little bit of that, too. Like, there is a bit of a, you know, like, you have to be able to afford to be able to not eat. Like, meat is cheap. Like, caloric-wise, like, meat is cheap calories.
A lot of vegan things can be cheap. The problem is people don't know how to
do it. Yeah, they don't know
do vegan. So what they do is a lot of people go straight for those substitutes.
Yes,
cost a lot of fucking money. But last night I had rice and beans. Like,
exactly.
It's cheap as fuck. You know?
Yeah, that is also an aspect too. So, and that's the balance, right? If you want to try to like the people who are trying to be vegan but still like eat everything that they used to eat just in substitutes, then you need to be able to like. And
then they complain it's too expensive. It's like, you got to do your research. You got to. Another problem I've found with, you know, I understand why people can't be vegan is because a lot of people don't like cooking. If you don't like cooking,
you can't be a vegan.
It's going to be hard to be a vegan because then you're going to spend a lot more on these vegan substitutes because they're quick and easy to make. You know.
Yeah, so that's kind of hard too, but more power to you. More power to you. Also, I'm just bad about my fruits and veggies. I just don't really go out of my way to eat them all the time, when I probably should.
It's been like on and off. Like again, I shouldn't call myself a vegan, I'm sure, because a lot of vegans would say, that's not a vegan. You're not a vegan. But I would say I've been an on-off vegan for it's been almost 5 years now. Yeah. So not perfect, but. Who gives a shit?
I love how your annoying vegan is also like a bratty teenage girl, like your voice you make. Yeah.
I feel like that's my voice for anyone I think is annoying.
Yeah, that's
except for
like,
a dude. Like if a dude is annoying, it's like
yeah, you kind of
like
make your voice a little lower. Yeah. We all have ours. I used to do more of those. I don't really do them as much as I used to.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Okay, so let's start with this whole hearing thing, I suppose.
All right. So if we are making this a podcast, do you want to like kind of explain a little what's going on? You don't have to.
I actually don't know how much I'm allowed to say because it's technically a closed proceeding. I can like talk about it, I suppose. Or this is about the general thing, but
talk about what you think you're allowed to talk about, I guess.
Yeah. So I mean, well, also like, let's just talk about like.
I can also. I don't have to upload this until like after you found out the verdict, you know.
I'll probably. Oh, we'll see. Well, we might as well just talk about things now and see how it goes. But you want me to tell you like how Monday went? I suppose, or like.
Sure.
So, I don't even know how to start this. I'm trying to start this without like just like exploding a whole bunch of data. Because like this could just be like a like drinking from a fire hose. Because there's just so much. But I will tell you this: like I have not done this much like writing, reading, and preparing since I was like working on my comprehensive exams for my master's. And like that was a fuck ton. I basically had, for that I had to produce a 30-page document in a week.
Wow.
So yeah, that was pretty insane. But like this is spread out over a good amount of time. Like, and my lawyer was actually pretty cool. Like she thought it would be best, and also she's just really expensive. But she thought it would be best if I represented myself, but she would help me prepare. So we spent some time on the phone, her walking me through the process, how things work, giving me ideas of like what kinds of pieces of evidence to make. Like she had me like make a timeline of the text messages, a timeline of the investigation to show where it was flawed and how they were missing all these dates, stuff like that. And so she gave me like just kind of walking me through that, and then just getting me ready for the actual proceeding. So I walk in there, and it's like me on one side, and it is this lawyer and like the assistant superintendent for HR and like another high-ranking person in HR, like all working together. Like it is literally like me versus the system. Wow. Like I can tell that they came like, and it was fascinating because at first it's like the only way I can describe it is the exact same sensation that you feel when you get on stage for a performance, right? Because it's the exact same thing. You spent all this time preparing and all this time studying and all this time drops and then all this time making sure you know what you want to do, but then you got to go in front of everybody and present it, right? And you have to be able to like do it, right? Like that's a totally different thing. And so like the opening statements were crazy. I had a prepared statement for that, so like I had like this 5-page thing wrote out. And apparently I was like so nervous when I read it, the court recorder, because there's a court recorder, she had to like make copies of it because I was talking too fast and she couldn't keep up with me. So that was like that. And like they came at me pretty hard, like at least she did. And see, and that's another thing, like in these scenarios, I mean this is about as close to being in a court that I guess I've ever been in, hopefully ever will be. And it was run pretty much like it, but there are a couple of things that like hit you right off the bat that you have to immediately learn how to like let go of. And I think being a musician really helped me with that. One was that anxiety of like being on stage. Like okay, once I realized that this felt like a performance, I like knew how to think to calm myself down. Yeah. But then also, it's this strange phenomenon, a really, really strange phenomenon, having a person who doesn't know you, has never met you or spoken to you, sit here and try to make all these claims and all these accusations against you. Yeah. Just some random third-party person who wasn't a part of anything, sitting here just like saying stuff because somebody handed them a piece of paper. And
this person never talked to you?
No, like the lawyer doesn't have to talk to me. Like
the lawyer,
right? I'm talking about the lawyer, right?
Duh.
So like that. Yeah. So the school's lawyer is sitting here talking about all the reasons why I need to go. And I'm just like in my head, just like, bitch, you don't know me. Like,
Right.
like get out of here.
You've never
like,
met me before.
You don't even know what's going on here, right? And so it's really hard to not take that personal. And you really have to understand that it is a game. It is theater. Mm-hmm. That's all it is. It really is. And like I noticed that as when I was talking to my lawyer, like how she talks like, they're going to go on the attack and you have to defend and you have to do this. It's like you're talking like this is a video game. And it really is a fucking video game. It's just a fucking video game. It's just all about who prepares most and who can make the best arguments. Yeah. And so like there was a bit of a learning curve here at first because I had like all these questions prepared. And there was like a couple of things that I had to make like very clear. One was that the report itself was very, very flawed. Right? And flawed in multiple ways, right? Like flawed in the sense that there were attachments that weren't cited correctly. Like he'll say, see this attachment, and it was the wrong attachment. Oh. But then there's also things where like contradictory statements within the report. Like you saying, I said this one thing this one time, and you saying this. And then also claiming that student of mine, wasn't a student of mine, which that was a whole other thing that we can get into too. But I came into the approach that I was going to like present my evidence to each one of these witnesses to show, but they kept saying that I was asking my questions wrong and I was being too broad with some of these questions, and they're like, you have to make the questions more specific. Even
though they were completely broad with you.
Yes, like, I know, right? I know. They're like, you have to make the questions more specific to the witness, not to your case. And I was like, so you need to save some of those things you're saying for your presentation, not for the witnesses. So this was actually pretty good though, because this is when I knew that the hearing officer was at least being fair, because I'd ask all these questions and then the lawyer would object to them and say that I can't ask them. And then he was like, oh, okay, you need to save what you're doing here for your presentation. And I was like, thank you, because I don't understand this process. And so like I finally got around, and so the hardest one was with Wiley, who was the HR person, because like, one, it's very clear that she's done this before and she knows how to navigate this, and she's just such a I don't want to say this in this way, but she's such a bitch.
That's fine.
God damn it, and I don't mean it that way, but like,
how dare you say the B word, Kareem?
And when I mean it in a very specific way. One of my biggest pet peeves is a person who feels and outwardly shows that like they have some kind of power or control over you, and then they have this amount of arrogance to them because like she knew that she had my job in her hands, and she was happily holding that in her hands, and she would like come at me with all these kind of snarky remarks, and like this is where I needed to know a little bit more about the system, because Annette told me this too, but I didn't understand to this degree how much she meant I should do this. She was very, Annette was my lawyer, by the way, but she was very clear. She's like, you need to force them into strict yes or no questions. She's like, don't give them a chance to explain themselves. Like, make them say yes or no.
Okay.
And so at the beginning, it was really hard because I had these yes or no questions. So I'm like, is this true? She'd be like, well, yes, kind of, and blah, blah, blah. And I would let her speak. And like, I'm thinking to myself, well, I can't just interrupt her, even though I just wanted the yes or no question. But then when it came to them asking me questions, I would do the same thing. She'd be like, the defendant is being, obstinate, not answering my questions right. I just wanted a yes or no. And she would have like my answers stricken from the record because I would explain. Okay. To the point where I had to be like, excuse me, sir, like, I don't understand what I'm doing wrong here. I'm answering the questions the same way she did. What am I doing wrong? And he was like, well, technically, you're not allowed to insert new information into the answer of your question.
Even though she was doing that.
Even though the other person they were questioning was doing that, right? And so I was like, well, that was something I should have known when it was my turn to question someone, but thanks for letting me know now. So like once I finally understood that, I was able to ask some better questions. But like the first part was hard because I didn't really understand that, and she really used that to her advantage and like trying to like get me to stop. And also they were really shitty too. So one of the HR ladies literally went around and got everybody's lunch orders and paid for everybody's lunch but mine. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, she offered to get me something if I had cash on me, but I didn't. but she was like, "Oh, I can't pay for you," but and the way she
what
said it,
the hell?
like the way she said it's like, "We're going to be getting lunch. Like, I can't pay for you, but if you want something, I can get it."
What
and
the
I was
frick?
like, "No, I'm good. I don't want anything." Like,
how to make you feel like shit?
and that's the point. The point there was pure intimidation.
Mm-hmm.
Pure intimidation. I could tell that's exactly what they're doing. They were exerting their power. Like, this is people whipping their dicks out. And making it known that they're the ones who make the rules. Mm-hmm. But I think this also worked in my favor because I genuinely do not think that they were that prepared for me to be so prepared.
Mm-hmm.
Because I had my binder that I showed you. I had that shit alphabetized. Mm-hmm. I had my things like highlighted, and that was another thing that got me because I was using my binder and like I was citing pages that I had on there, but she had her own references, so anytime I was referencing her in her evidence, my page numbers were off. So that was throwing me off at first because I was having to sit there and do that. But like once I was able to like, okay, my page, 15 is her page 23, I could like flip through both binders a lot quicker. So like once I got that rhythm down as well, like it made it better. But like at the beginning it was rough, but around the end, I think it got a little better. And so, like my closing statement, I mean, this thing went on for 7 hours.
Yeah, you were there forever.
Yeah, I was there for 7 hours. And even my lawyer said that was long for a hearing. Like, pretty long for a hearing. But like, just to add to it, like, my closing statement was, I feel like I spoke for like 45, 50 minutes on just my closing statement alone to like, make sure everything was cleared up. Because, I had to have a couple objectives in mind. Like, how am I going to explain this? Like, it was clear that like what they were really trying to push on is this idea of me having like an intimate and inappropriate relationship with my students. Mm-hmm. And they're saying that because I text my students, there somehow implies an intimate, inappropriate relationship. And then I was like, no, like that clearly implies romance. Like, right. The sentence says, and this is my argument. Like the sentence says, teachers are refrained from dating or any other inappropriate or intimate relationship with students. That sentence reads, dating is the example for inappropriate.
Yes.
Right? That it has to be. And like that's what I said because she was arguing it says dating or inappropriate. Uh-huh. And I was like, so that means it could be anything. I was like, but that can't be that. And I cannot be that because if dating is not used as a focal point, if it's not used as an example, that means the word inappropriate is too vague. And it means that you can shift the goalposts and the county can move that to whatever it means in order for whatever means they want it to move to. Mm-hmm. And that was like one of the central arguments I made. And I was very clear with them. I was like, look, like, was I a little too familiar with my students? Probably, but that's pretty common with fine arts students. Especially with the fine arts, with the fine arts students, right? That's really common. I was like, these students like were with me at all times. Like one was in my highest ensemble, did all this, was tutoring my beginners, like, like we're just around each other all the time. It makes sense that, when her mother's in trouble, she's going to reach out to another trusted adult she has.
Well, because she feels comfortable going to you and talking with you about issues that she's having. Because there's apparently no other teacher in the school that she feels comfortable doing that.
And I was like, and that can't be a problem.
And unfortunately, you're a guy, so that's why this happened.
That is obviously why it happened, but I tried my best not to make it that, so they didn't think I was trying to find a scapegoat. Mm-hmm. But particularly with like that one was like the easiest one because that was just her texting me because her dad going after her mom, and I told her to call the police. Mm-hmm. And I was like, look, like after that, it was between me and her mother. Like her mother knew that I knew this information, and her mother was looking for my help. At that point, it's two adults, talking to each other. Like I don't need to report that to anyone.
Right.
Like all that situation was a student being responsible, looking out for the well-being of their mother, going to another trusted adult, and coming to me. Like I do get to exist as an adult human being outside of these situations. Like, and I made the example. I was like, look, like I've helped. I mean, I've had parents of students invite me over for dinner. I helped a parent of one of my students become a member of the city council. Like I'm allowed to have interactions with my students' parents outside of school. So like that one, I did the right protocol there. And with the other one, I was just like, you all are assuming, and I was like, it even says in her report, and I was like, it says, because this is the one I got her, she wrote in her report, I think I read you that line, it says, it is likely more abuse took place. And I asked her, do you have any evidence for that, or is that just intuition? And she was like, well, reading through this and reading this, I was like, no. Do you actually have evidence that there is more things?
Right.
Or is that just intuition? And she was like, well, I don't have any more evidence besides this. And I was like, so it could just be intuition. I was like, there could be nothing more here, could there? And she was like, well, I guess there could not be. And I was like, so you're assuming, like that is an assumption. Even if it is a good assumption, it's still an assumption. And, you're not allowed to sit here and assume things. And I was also in like, what you're doing is like, do you have any reason to believe that the student told me more about her situation than she told the counselors, which you have written in your report that she talked to counselors about this. And she was like, well, she was texting you. I was like, do you have any evidence to show that she texted me more about this situation than she told them? And she was like, no. And I was like, so there we are again. And so that was my argument. I was like, look, like, because the lawyer's main argument is that it didn't, because I was always saying I didn't feel like I had enough evidence to report anything. And she was saying, well, it says here in the thing that if a teacher even has a reason to suspect child abuse, then they need to report it. And I was just like, well, you need to understand the situation is in. And by the time I knew what was going on, when she texted me that she is staying at a friend's house because her dad had kicked her out, at this point, here's what I know. Her father knows where she is. Her mother knows where she is. Her best friend's mother knows where she is. And the lead counselor of our school knows that she's going through this situation. So in my mind, one, it's already being handled above my head with the lead counselor.
Right.
There are already other adults involved. She's just using me as a kind of an emotional lightning rod at this point. She just needs to get out some emotions. She just needs to express herself, and she just needs somebody to answer some questions for her. What reason would I feel like I need to report if I know that all those people know the same information or more than I do? Right? And so that's what I was trying to tell them. I was like that is what I mean when I mean that I didn't think I had enough information. If our lead counselor isn't reporting this and he knows it, and clearly then that means I don't have enough information.
Exactly.
To do it. Right? And so like that was for that one. And for the drinking one was the most silly one. And I think because they didn't even try to argue that one too much. Because they realized that I'd never mentioned alcohol. There's no text in there about mentioning alcohol. I told my student, because she said she was going to have a rough drive home, and she was celebrating her 17th birthday with her friends and her older sister at a beach party. And I said, well, make sure you drink some water and eat some bread, right? And I was like, okay, and I admit, I was like, I guess if you want to read in between the lines, you can read that as like, at most, you can read that as me saying, okay, take care of yourself. Right? Like, that is what that means. That's not, take another shot for me, or, pour one out for me, or, make sure you go out and have some fun. At most, that is what it's saying, is that is me acknowledging the reality of the situation.
She's a 17-year-old girl at a beach house on her birthday.
Yes, and that's what I said. And because then she was like, well, when you had your interview with Ms. you said that you were talking about alcohol. And I said, what I told Ms. is that in my intuition, if I was a 17-year-old at a beach party by myself with my friends, that's what I would be doing, and that's why I commented that way, and halfway joking, halfway take care of yourself. I have no reason to believe or prove or to assume that she was drinking alcohol there, but I know that if I was in her situation, I would be. But that is not enough grounds to report someone. And I was like, and what am I supposed to do? It's the middle of the summer. Am I supposed to call my principal and say 4 hours away in Virginia Beach, a student might be drunk somewhere? And I said that, and I felt a little bad because my lawyer told me not to be sarcastic, but I couldn't help but be able to sarcastic. And I was like, what am I supposed to do? Like, a student might be 4 hours away drinking with her older sister and her best friends for her 17th birthday party. I don't know for sure though. Just wanted to let you know. And so I said that, and she was like, well, don't you agree that, saying that drinking water and eating bread is a remedy for hangovers? And I was like, well, it's a remedy for any kind of stomach ailment. Right. Think about it.
If I'm sick, I'm probably going to eat bread.
That's what I said. I was like, eating carbs and drinking water is just kind of good for you in general. And she's like, but weren't you talking about alcohol? And I was like, no. I was saying that if I was in that situation, that's what I'll be doing, and that's what I told Ms. Wiley. I was not sitting there endorsing alcohol. And we sat there and spat back and forth about it, because what she was trying to get me to say is that about alcohol, because then you say, like, see, he admits it. So there's that one, and there's another one because they were really harping on this idea of being inappropriate, and I can see where they're coming at, because they're also trying to they're trying to say like I'm this unrepentant person who won't admit that he did something wrong. And like these kind of people, that's all they really want you to do. They want you to kiss their boot and say that you did something wrong.
Yes.
Like it gets their dicks hard. Like, and that's what they want. And if I would have just said that, I bet you a lot of this wouldn't have been done. But because like that's what they want. It's like he won't even admit that he's done something wrong. And like even, so then the hearing officer who was allowed to ask questions, he asked me, so it was like, I just want to be clear, like, are you like admitting here that you're not doing anything wrong? And I was like, I know it sounds like I'm being difficult with this question, and I know it sounds like I'm being obstinate, but I want to be very clear. The way that this policy reads, and the way that I interpret it, and have studied this and have prepared myself for this, is that this reads that this statement about having an inappropriate relationship and an intimate relationship with someone is a romantic thing. It implies romance. Dating is an example, and intimacy is clearly something romantic. And I was like, like I have a best friend and we hang out and play video games. I wouldn't say that our friendship is intimate.
Right.
Like because that implies a sense of romance. And I say, and this is why I have trouble saying that I did something wrong, because by those standards, I did not have an intimate relationship with these students. I did not have an inappropriate relationship with these students. I was overly familiar with these students, and I also made some faulty assumptions in thinking that the counselors were going to take care of this information, and that since the students' parents knew where they were, that I probably didn't need to do anything about it.
Right.
Like I will admit those, but I will not say that I've done something inappropriate to allow them to then shift the goalpost and then push it to all these grooming charges they have here. Because I made that very clear too. It's like they're being very deceptive here. They have all these ideas of grooming here in the beginning. They have a packet of it in the back of their evidence. They make sure not to mention it in the conclusion, but it's poisoned it from that point. Right? It's already in the back of your head. If you tell somebody that I didn't say this, but it was like if you tell somebody, they're an alcoholic, anytime they go out to the bar, that's always going to be in the back of your head.
Yes.
It's always going to be in the back of your head.
Absolutely.
So, but that's like what I said, because like I can tell that that's really what they're wanting to hear, is me to get on my knees and be like, I'm sorry, I did something wrong, and I'm blah, blah. And I'm not.
I'm glad you stood your ground.
I will not admit falsely to trying to groom 17-year-old girls. I refuse. I simply refuse, because I did not do that, and I don't care how much they want to think it implies that, just because it's like I don't know why. I've always had a gift for white women that just get along with me. It's just a thing. I don't know why. Always had that gift. No matter how old they are, white women love me. So.
Oh, I remember you telling me a story about like this one like girl that you dated and her mom or something.
Oh yeah, that was my first girlfriend. I was actually talking to her earlier today. We were talking about that earlier today, because I was telling her about how the case went, and I said the same thing. I was like, yeah, I'm just cursed with the fact that young white women just find me a good person to talk to. And she was like, yeah, I remember when my mom was always like that. Like her mom was a piece of work. Like to the point where I remember, I don't know if I told you this story. Like we were hanging out when we were in high school. We were at my house once, and she put her mom on speakerphone, and her mom was like reading her Bible verses about like why she shouldn't like be around me or like be involved with me.
With you there?
Yeah, she didn't know I was listening in.
Oh.
But no, there was this one time this was when I don't know if I told you this story either. We basically like dated until we didn't. It was weird. Like we never really broke up. We kept moving further and further apart. Like we'd always kind of be further apart, and then like when we were together, we were like together, and then our lives would separate us, and then we were together. And then eventually, like she went to Kentucky to go to college, and I went to Virginia, and then she, we never really saw each other. And she found who eventually she married. But like we would kind of in the first year of college, like in the summers, and the first couple of years, we'd always come back together. And I remember I was at her house once. I think it was like the summer of our freshman year of college, and we're just like sitting on her couch, and she's just like laying on me, and her mom's like, and this is like we're like 19 at this point, 19, about to turn 20, I think. And her mom was like, don't lean on him. That's inappropriate. And I guess like that was finally like the last straw of like her dealing with her mother's racism. And she was just like, Mom, are you really so dumb to not realize that me and Kareem like dated all throughout high school, like secretly behind your back? Like, did you really not figure that out? And she just like went on this long rant about it, and her mom started crying and like ran up to her room.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it was a big old mess, but yeah, so.
Another thing I've noticed is It seems like a lot of the people that you date have like racist parents.
Yeah.
But like the stories that you've told me, like of some parents who've said things, I'm like, shit.
Yeah. I think it's because, and how do I say this without sounding mean?
You can be mean.
I think all white people are a little racist.
Everyone's a little bit racist.
And what I mean by that is
sometimes.
like, there's just like, there's just, it's because of media and television, it makes them think these things, like these stereotypes in their head. Like, so even if they're not consciously thinking it, like when the reality sets in, it starts to shock them. Like, and this is what I mean. Like, I remember this girl Victoria. That was like a girl I dated, like I think it was my sophomore year of college. Yeah, sophomore year. That sounds about right. But anyways, we had known each other in high school, and I'd had a crush on her in high school. Never really went anywhere in high school. And like I had gone over to her when we were in high school. I went over to her house. She invited me over for Christmas dinner once, and like we were close. But like by the time anything had started to develop, like she had moved. Like she moved to North Carolina. Fast forward, done with high school, and by this, her moms love me. Like parents' moms fucking love me. Like I can impress white women. But there's this line. Like I said, there's this line with white women. Like and the white moms, they love me. I'm well spoken. I talk like a white person, like I do it all, right? Especially like when I was going to church and when I was a good little church boy, it was even better.
Oh man, you
right?
went to church?
I used to be a good little church boy.
Really? How long did you go to church?
I pretty much gave it up completely like first or second year of college.
But you like went to church before that? Like that?
On and off, yeah, on and off.
Dang! I didn't. What kind of like denomination did you?
My grandmother was Lutheran and she made me go to that, and then I went to Baptist stuff with my mom and dad a lot, and then I did the whole non-denominational thing with my friend.
Okay.
In high school and then beginning of undergrad.
Okay.
Yeah, I almost played drums for a church band for college.
Dang!
Yeah. So yeah, I was involved just for a little while. But anyways, her mom loved me. I remember in high school, like when I went for that Christmas party thing, she was like, "Man, you're like perfect. Like I hope marries a boy like you.
That's the thing. Story I remember you.
Oh, is that the one? So I told you this one, but then as soon as we started dating, it's like this wall, and it's because there's a difference between it being in theory and then the reality sets in of like, what are people going to think? Like, then they start going through their head of like, what are their grandparents going to think? Like, what are all these people think? And then it forces them into this idea where like, oh no. It's like that is what I mean by every white person is a little bit racist in the sense that they know that they still have at least racist grandparents. Who won't?
Yes. I was about to say that. So, like, I think like that little racist thing that you're talking about. I think it's because of the older generation. Yes. Because it's like if, like I wouldn't give a shit, but like my grandmother obviously would.
Yes. Yes.
And another thing is like it's becoming a lot more common now, but you still see like. Typically a white person with a white person or a black person with a black person, and typically like if it's swapped on both sides it's sometimes ridiculed upset. A lot. So
there's still a little bit of that, and so like I guess my problem is just that I'm a black dude who is mostly attracted to white women. I've only ever dated one black girl in my life, and that was in high school. It didn't go very well. But and I guess basically white. She was like 1/4 Hispanic, but the only thing Hispanic about her was the fact that she could tan in her name. Other than that, she was basically a down-home West Virginia girl. But other than that, it's been all white girls.
Have you ever thought about like any other kind of race?
It's not like, honestly, I don't have the luxury to choose. You know what I mean? It's not like I'm sitting here like turning down girls because of this or that, the other. Like I just beggars can't be choosers usually is what it is. So, I've never been like, I'm not going to be interested in you because of your race or anything.
Yeah.
It's just that I don't really find many people who are terribly interested in me. But, yeah. I don't know. But yeah, I guess that's just weird how it is. It's usually I'm like the first black guy some white girl has ever dated. They've always been interested to see what it's like. It's usually how it is. Yeah, then they realize their dicks are the same size as white folk, and that their grandparents are going to be a little awkward to doubt, and the novelty wears off, and then they move on. That's usually how it goes. So that's my role in this world. I'm the guinea pig.
You're the checklist.
I'm the checklist. Somebody's got to do it, man. Somebody's got to do it.
Oh my god.
I'm also Good Luck Chuck. You know, every person I've been with, except for one, because he died, is now still with or married to the person that they fell in love with right after me.
Wait, you said one dude because he died. Did you date a dude at one point?
No, the person she fell in love with died.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. No, I'm
I was about to say, I didn't know that about you.
No, apparently I do give off some kind of, like, gay vibes.
Oh, I never, ever
Really?
would know.
One of my students said that, like, she's like, because she was like, I don't know how we got to talk about her sexuality, because she told me she was bisexual. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I can see that. And I asked her, like, what do you think I am? And she was like, you're definitely into girls. But she was like, but I wouldn't be surprised if I saw you with a boyfriend. And I was like, okay.
I think I wouldn't give a shit, but I think I'd be surprised if I saw you with a guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, no, this is not a thing. I legit was open to the possibility of it. Because I had this gay friend, and he is adorable. He's like the cutest little gay dude ever. Mm-hmm. And I think he was flirting with me once. And I was like, if I was going to be attracted to a dude, it would be you, because you're adorable. And he was like sitting next to me, and he was like leaning on me, and I was like, I don't know how much I enjoy this. I'm going to just sit here and let this happen. And he was like leaning on me, and I was like, oh, no. Mm-hmm. Boys are gross. I have no clue how girls do it. Like, we feel bad. Like, we boys feel weird. Like, how do you even touch us? Like I don't understand how you touch us. Like, girls are soft and they smell good and they feel good. Boys are like jagged and rough and hairy.
I'm going to say this. I much prefer hugging a guy over hugging a girl because guys are very huggable, whereas girls are very bony for the most part.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I don't know.
That's just it's just pure genetics, dude.
Yeah.
Like, pure genetics in that one, because I was just like, I don't like how your skin feels touching my skin. Like, it's not even that I have a problem with you. It's like, no, like, I want female skin all around me.
Honestly, for me, I don't even know. Like, maybe I'm like somewhere in the middle. I have no idea because like I think boobs actually look pretty nice.
Boobs are nice.
Yeah.
Yes, boobs are nice.
And like, you know, my mom growing up, like especially in high school because I didn't have a boyfriend, she like was dead set on believing that I was gay.
Really?
And she would like tell me all the time, "You're gay. I know you're gay. Just tell me." And I'm like, "I'm not gay." And then when I was in college, I lived with two gay girls.
Yeah.
And then she like wouldn't talk to me for like 2 weeks because she was like, "You're keeping secrets from me, and I know you're gay, and you're not telling me." And I'm like, "I'm not gay.
I'm not gay. Not me."
I just scared my cat. But yeah, like I don't know. Like I don't know. Maybe I am. Maybe I am partially. Like maybe
I never thought about the way you know. Just imagine yourself kissing a girl. You know, if it doesn't gross you out. I've kissed a girl. Have you kissed a girl? Did you like it?
I mean, it was for my my old roommate's 21st birthday, where she had to kiss like this amount of people, and I was like, "I'll kiss you, sure."
It was like compare that sensation to when you kiss.
I like kissing her a lot more.
Okay, so either one didn't find the right girl, or it's not your thing.
Yeah, but I also really, I mean, this girl is awesome. Like, it's just I don't think I could imagine myself doing sexual things with a girl. But I don't mind like looking at a sexy girl, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. Yeah. So you enjoy the female form?
Yeah, like.
Well, I mean, the female form. It's just girls just look better
the like
than
hourglass thing, the boobs pushed up, the butt hanging out. Dude, I think it looks nice.
It does.
You know?
Like the female form is just far superior. Like, no matter what your interests are, I think even gay men agree that the female form is far superior.
Yeah, well, and it's also, I think it's also because of a media thing. Like, you know, girls grow up looking at like these images of girls, and they're like, "Oh, I want to be like that," and so you get used to seeing this like perfect image. Like, growing up, when I saw Beyonce, I was like, she's the most beautiful fucking woman I've ever seen, because she's got the long like wavy hair, she's got the huge butt and boobs, and then she's got the thigh gap, which girls were like obsessed with in high school, and like, and I was like, she's just freaking like beautiful. And I don't know, there's just something about like that. It's really nice to look at, but I don't think I could imagine myself ever doing things with that.
That's fair.
If that makes sense.
That's fair. I think that's perfectly valid.
But for example, like one of like boyfriend and I's go-to places is Hooters. We both enjoy Hooters.
Nice. Okay.
They got good appetizers too.
I've actually never been to Hooters before.
Oh, you need to go to Hooters. It's great.
Yeah, never been.
The first time we went, our waitress like just put her rack like on the table and was like, "Hey, so like, what can I get you guys?" And I was like, "This is great."
The problem with me is that like I'm so conflicted because like on one hand I'm a dude, so it's not like I don't like look, right? Like every dude looks, and
I look.
Yeah, and there's like a science to it that you have to do so that you don't get caught, and like every guy to
It's
some
Hooters.
degree
If
has
you
like
look,
mastered.
it's fine.
Yeah, but the problem is that like me growing up in like such female dominated households is that like I feel like I'm obligated to not do that. So like I feel conflicted by the way I've grown up and by like the fact that I'm a boy.
Yeah.
And those are boobs.
Yeah.
And so like I'm always like must resist, you know.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm supposed to be respectful. They're not objects. But look at that. Those are great.
Yeah. They kind of are objects.
Yeah.
They're just kind of there.
And that's clearly the whole point of the place. So like, I shouldn't feel that bad since that's the whole point. But, all right, I'm going to get another beer. And you have to tell me about your day because you had a crazy day too.
Yeah, it's going to seem like nothing compared to what you just told me.
You always say that, and then you're always kind of wrong. So.
It's just like, I don't know, it's more emotions. I'm just full of emotions.
Right.
Girls are emotional. It was like, no amount of therapy will be able to erase what I've just seen or something like that.
Yeah. I wonder if that show still holds up. Like, I wonder if I watched it right now, would I still enjoy it, or was it because I was a kid?
Maybe we should like watch a
We should
couple
watch a couple
episodes.
episodes.
Yeah.
I bet you we'd still like it. Because there was a lot of stuff that was like forward.
There's a lot of stuff that went right over my head.
Yeah.
Like, one of my favorites still, and I think I quote this a lot of times that you're here, is the, Timmy, I'm respecting your privacy by knocking, but asserting my authority as your father by coming in anyway.
Yeah. There's that one, and there's like, I would follow my dreams too if I had any.
Oh yeah.
And then he's like, when did you lose your dreams? He's like, how old are you?
How old are you?
Yeah.
Oh, I gave up my hopes and dreams a long time ago.
He was like, oh, when? He's like, how old are you?
How old are you?
Yeah, like things like that.
I showed my mom that, and she thought it was like the best thing ever. I also love when Timmy goes back in time to like see when his mom and dad first met, and it's like, oh, well, actually, my name is, but everyone just calls me Mom.
Yeah. I think they do that for the dad too. Like, doesn't like a bird come by or something?
Yeah, but everyone just calls me Dad. Dinkelberg.
Dinkelberg. Okay, story time.
All right, well, I mean, this school year sucks.
Yeah, definitely so.
So they decided, like, right before spring break, there was word that they were going to, sometime after spring break, bring all of the in-person kids back 4 days a week. So, like, just last week, they're like, oh, yeah, next week we're gonna bring all the kids in.
Yeah.
And we're like, what? Okay. Okay. We didn't have a meeting about this. It was just like through an email. And then we usually have meetings on Mondays. And so Monday, our principal sends us an email, no meeting today. Okay. So what are we supposed to do about all the, like, are we getting any kind of prep about all these kids coming in? No. So we go in and like, I'm already freaking nervous as all heck. I do my morning duty and all of that, and there's so many freaking kids. Like, it took forever for all of them to get off the buses because it's almost like a full school again. And we have free breakfast at our school. Now the problem is that now they've made it to 3 feet instead of 6 feet. So now, like, you have a packed room. But the problem is that if the kids take off their masks to eat, they have to be 6 feet apart. They can't be 3 feet apart. So every day for breakfast and for lunch, they have to take half of every single class out of the room and put them somewhere else so that they can eat. So after my morning duty, that's when breakfast starts for these kids. I walk into my room and I'm like getting set up because I had a CLT and I had a kindergarten class afterwards. And my room had not been set up for 3 feet. It had still been set up for 6 feet. I can't fit all the kids in my room because the tape isn't set up for them to be there. So I'm like already trying to figure that out. And then this one like random teacher comes in with a bunch of kids and says, "Is this room 211?" I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "Oh, okay, come on in, kids." And I'm like, What's going on?" She's like, "Oh, they're having breakfast in here." I had no idea. So I was just upset because of that, because I'm like, okay, this isn't my space anymore. This is not my room. Like, there's a bunch of kids eating breakfast with their masks off in my space, and I'm supposed to start a CLT. Also, their breakfast ends at the exact same time I'm supposed to start 3rd grade. So how does that work? I'm not going to bring my 3rd graders and have them sit in the exact same spot where kids just ate breakfast without masks. That's not going to work. So I went outside for my CLT, and I walk outside, and there's kids eating breakfast outside because we don't have places for them to eat inside.
God.
So what happens when it rains? Like, these poor frickin' kids have to eat outside, sitting on the sidewalk, because they don't have a place to eat in the school, being 6 feet apart. Another problem, and this I noticed today, especially with the homeroom teacher, because they don't know what the frick is going on, is if the kids who are in the class, because they, like I said, they have to separate for breakfast. If the kids in the classroom aren't done with their breakfast when the other kids are coming back in, those kids can't go back in because then it still won't be 6 feet.
Yeah.
So they have to like wait for the kids in the room to finish before they go back in.
That's so insane, dude.
And this is with every single class in the building. And then like they're using my room for Kiss and Ride, and now Kiss and Ride is doubled. And I went in and I ripped up all the 8-foot tape because I talked with my admin, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna, they actually sent down one of the custodians, and she helped me rip up all the old tape." And I was like, "Well, I got to teach a class in 10 minutes, so I don't have enough time to put the new tape down." So I left, went to go teach 2 of my classes, and then I come back, and there's all these little random pieces of tape everywhere, and even on the carpet, which I told my admin multiple times, I can't have a kid sitting on the carpet, 1, because it's near my desk, and 2, because you can't sanitize the carpet, right? And so there's just, like, all the kids were sitting there, they're sitting, like, all over my room. I came back, and one of my tables was missing, my piano had been moved, like, it's not my space anymore, and so I was just, like, super uncomfortable, and I hate this whole situation, not just for me, but for the kids. Cause it's not fair.
That sounds like rough for them too. Like, yeah. I don't know how you deal with all that. Like, I would have. Ugh. That's why I can't be in elementary.
It almost sounds petty though. Like, I feel like I'm talking petty.
You're not talking petty. Like, that's just so absurd. It's so absurd on so many.
I can't believe the kids have to eat levels. Outside.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
On so many different levels, it's very, very sad that that's what they're doing.
And another thing that pisses me off is. About 2 weeks ago, I got delivered to my room this really nice camera that, when I have kids in the room, because I was teaching virtually and, I had kids in person at the same time, this camera's supposed to, like, zoom into the kids in the room so the kids on the, computer can see all of them. Mm-hmm. And now that camera's completely fucking worthless because they're all back in person now. So the county, and I'm not the only one, they gave it to every single teacher in the building. These really nice cameras with like built-in speakers, and they have this zoom capability, all completely worthless that they just gave us because all the kids are back now.
They had money to spend, dude. They have so much money to spend. It's so pathetic.
But they don't have enough money to give us raises. Like, we're not getting raises next year either.
You guys aren't getting your raises next year?
Nope.
They're even giving county their raises next year.
Yeah, no, they're not giving us raises. They said isn't getting raises next year again.
Wow,
I know. And
that's pretty crazy. That's crazy that what it was.
Yeah.
But I wonder if it's because. I wonder if you guys had as many people leave as we did. We had a lot of teachers just up and quit. But who knows?
We have a bigger county, so maybe we had a lot of people quit, but it's like not as devastating because we have so many people in the county.
Yeah.
I don't know. But this is such a freaking mess.
Dude, I don't know how you do that. Like I said, part of me is kind of glad that I haven't had to deal with all this because I don't know if I would have had the patience for it. I really don't.
Yeah, well...
Especially when we started doing this half and half shit.
The problem is that I even mentioned this at one of my CLTs, how it feels like we've had 3 school years in 1 year.
Yeah.
Because we started off the year virtual. And I remember, like, in October, they were, like, training us to going back to school in, like, November or something like that. And then that got nixed. So then they were like, oh, we're going to do it in December. That got cut, too.
Yeah.
So they kept training us and preparing us for going back into school. But then when we were actually going back into school, they didn't train us.
Yeah.
They like, stopped training us. And then, like, once we were actually in school, we had to teach 2 classes at once. We had to teach the virtual class on the computer at the same time we're teaching the kids in front of us, which that is like, I mean, I finally kind of got the hang of it. I mean, I can't focus on the virtual kids as much as I can the in-person kids, obviously, but that's like an entire new learning curve. I mean, we had to learn how to teach virtually, you know, all the teachers did, and now we had to learn how to do concurrent, and now like it's trying to be back to normal, but it's not normal. You know, with all the kids back, and like if you go and you talk to any parents in this county, they're all thrilled that the kids are back. Oh, that's so great! All the kids are back. It's like, yeah, but would you want to go teach in one of the schools?
Yeah, because they're not the ones teaching. Like,
yeah.
And they think that teachers are just being lazy fuckers and should just get back to doing what they do. And honestly, all it is these wine moms just want their afternoons back. And there are some legitimate ones where, like, I need to get to work and, you know, my kids can't be here home alone. Like, I totally understand that.
Absolutely understand.
But there are a lot of them where it's just like, you just want your afternoons back. And you think that this is just a hoax. And you basically are saying, you need to go sacrifice your life so that I can do what I need to do.
Well, another thing that, like, really pisses me off is, you know, I teach at a Title I school, and a lot of my kids, actually, like, I believe I'm correct in saying a majority of our school is virtual. I'm pretty sure we're 60% virtual and 40% in person. And it doesn't matter that a lot of my families want to stay virtual, and a lot of them didn't even want to go back to school, but were kind of forced to, because all of the white families in the rich areas make those decisions.
Yep.
My parents have no say in any of that because it's a Title I poor income
so
area.
they're not their needs are not going to be heard.
Right.
So.
It doesn't matter. No one cares about them.
Yeah, and that's the sad part. That's the real sad part, especially in areas like this where, you know, where it's just like one poor area surrounded by ridiculously rich areas.
Yes,
just get completely,
it's exactly what it is.
Yeah, it's a little bit better when everybody's poor, like when you're in like places, you know, further south.
Well, a really bad thing, and that's why I'm really glad I don't teach in the high school level or the middle school level, is because at least in the elementary school, everyone's poor for the most part. You know, there's like a few kids who, like, my daddy bought me a Nintendo Switch yesterday. And it's like, oh, good for you. But in the high school level, you have like my kids with like the really rich areas of the area, you know, and they're all mixed together. Yeah,
they get a little bit more interspersed.
Yeah.
It can
which I guess can be a good thing.
It can be a good thing, but it can also be devastatingly bad. I've seen, when I was teaching at high school, it was like that, because it was like, I want to say like 15 elementary schools fed into like maybe 6 or 7 middle schools, and then fed into 2 high schools.
Wow. And
so at some point you're having like, you know, kids who parents are on food stamps going to the same school as kids whose parents are doctors and bringing home like $300,000-$400,000 a year.
Yeah.
Like in the same building. You know, you'll have a kid who gets a full ride to Princeton, going to school with another kid who knows that they're going to be working at Walmart. Right. So, and so in some ways it's nice, because I think it's good for the different demographics to see each other, but the disparity is just so staggering, and it can be such a classist thing.
Yeah. Well, and it goes back to our whole argument about the, you know, how there's it seems like there's a race war in this country when there really needs to be a class war.
Yeah, and that's where it really starts to shine out in those areas. But yeah, so it can get a little rough. It can get a little rough in this area too. Dude, is that Final Fantasy VII?
I have Final Fantasy VII, but that's Final Fantasy IX.
Oh, 9. Okay.
Yeah.
But, oof, look, it sounds rough. Like I said, I don't know how you do it. I'm actually kind of glad that I haven't had to deal with all that this year, even if I have had to deal with something way more stressful.
I would have been really interested to hear, like, all of your stories.
Yeah.
About, like, all of that, because, I don't know. It's just... I think the biggest thing that pisses me off is that, I mention this all the time, is all the people who make these decisions don't actually teach.
Yes.
And they aren't actually administrators who are in the schools. So, like, my admin team is the frickin' bomb.com, but I also, there's so many things that they aren't telling me, or they aren't telling any of the staff, because one, they either don't know, or two, they're so frickin' overwhelmed that they forget to tell us stuff. So, like, it's just really frustrating. Like, we have to just literally fly by the seat of our pants because all the parents are commanding the school board to make these decisions.
Yeah, and part of me feels bad for them in some ways because, like, they really have sacrificed like a pretty core part of their humanity to be given this amount of power and this amount of money to become the administrators that they are, because at this point they're just robots.
Yes.
Right, they're just robots following protocols, and the reward is that they get to be higher up in the system to maybe try to, amend and manipulate these protocols, but that means that they have to be subject to them even more so. Like,
yes,
there's no humanity in their equation anymore, right? There's no human element.
Right.
There's no,
there's a big
understanding.
disconnect.
There's no nuance. There's a huge disconnect. And I mean, I think we've talked about this too. It's just, I honestly think that is just, we talk about that, that's what I think is the internal flaw of the education system in general. Because by the time you get to a point where you can make the rules, you're at least 5 years removed from what's been going on, and you're out of date. And just with all these people, it really is just the power game to them. Like, and that's all it is to them, is how quickly can I move up this ladder? What can I do? They really do believe that they're doing something right by being these arbiters of power, but they just don't realize that they've completely lost touch. Like, any teacher who went through my situation would understand, like, oh yeah, like I know exactly what's going on, like but when you're an administrator and you're far removed and all you're doing is reading rules and regulations, things start to look a little differently.
And then you kind of you point fingers at the teachers and like, why can't you do this? Why aren't you doing this? It's like, I can't.
Yeah,
like,
I can't.
That's
and it's also
not.
And they have to protect themselves, right? Like, so that
exactly.
Means,
well, because
that means like throwing us under the bus for whatever's going on.
Well, because they worked so hard to get to that position, it's like they don't want to just throw it away, especially if they have a family that they have to take care of.
Yeah, and that's like the hard thing too. Like, one thing that I've really realized now, like, and I've just been like struggling with is like, how to describe this. It's one thing that I think works in my favor for a lot of these things is that I don't have a lot to lose, and in the grand scheme of things, in the sense that, like, I don't have like a family or a wife or kids or whatever. So like, I don't, like, you know what I mean. So like a lot of these other teachers won't do what I do because they're so afraid of losing their jobs that it keeps them in line.
Right.
And it's like. And I think we've talked about the allegory in the cave too, right? Like the idea that we're just like, we're prisoners, and to the point where we're so convinced, we're prisoners, and we're so convinced that the prison is reality that we will fight to like live in it. And like, that's essentially what I did, right? Like, and it's in a weird way, I realized when I got home that like, I am also a victim of this Stockholm syndrome. I just spent 7 hours basically fighting to be put back in my cage.
Yes.
Because the alternative is way worse, and that's the problem. Like the alternative, the cold outside is worse than the cage, but it's still a fucking cage, and that is just the way we live, and it's so unfortunate because I mean they're in a cage too. It's just that their cage is bigger.
Yeah.
And because their cage is bigger, they feel that they and outside of my cage, so they can move around mine. It gives them the illusion of being free.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it would be like, like if we were forced to be stuck in this apartment, but then the administrators got to move around the building as a whole, but they couldn't go outside of it. Like to them, they would feel like they're more free than us because they're not stuck in just this building.
Right.
They're still in just as much of a cage.
Right.
But that being in that outer part of it makes them so much more arrogant. It makes them feel like they have so much more than the rest of us.
Well, and I think it in the bigger scheme of things, I think it goes back to what we were talking about a while ago of the work ethic in this country is too much. People are obsessed with working a lot. And it even shows with the kids because the kids go to school and work just as long as we do.
Yeah.
And that's ridiculous,
Yeah, it's like it's this weird. It's how we identify ourselves. Like we're like one of the few countries where like that's something that we ask and that's like normal. Like what do you do?
Right.
Like, most of the time that it's not even part of the conversation. Like what your job is. Like well, your job is just what you happen to do during the day, but that has nothing to do with who you are as a person. Unless you're like really doing something that you're really passionate about and you want to talk about it.
Right.
But here it's just.
It's your identity. It's who you
your
are.
identity, and I think it's this catch-22 that we live in, and I honestly don't know what the solution is. And because I was talking to my friend about this too, it's like, like if we want to live in a world where, where it only takes a 5-minute drive to get almost anything we ever need. And we can get something delivered to us in 2 days from Amazon.
Right.
It almost has to be this weird...
Exactly.
This society where we work all this much. Like, production needs to be that high and that fast to get these needs that we want. But it's like... And so, I don't know if the answer is like... If you want that shit the way it is, then I guess this is just how shitty the world has to... this country has to be until we find a better way to distribute our society. But I agree that there's this idea of... Like working, it's actually been really nice, and I've gone crazy in some ways, and I've like really gone a little stir crazy. But some aspects of this has been really nice, not having to work for about a year.
Yeah, well, it's exactly how I felt when we last year didn't get any snow days.
Yeah.
You guys got some, but like we got nothing because there was like no snow last year at all.
I remember that. Yeah.
And I remember all the kids, especially the kids, but the teachers too, we were so dead. And I remember once COVID hit and we got that first day off, I was like, oh, this is so nice. We finally, and then it was a week and I was like, oh, that's nice too. And then when people started to panic and be like, oh my God, like I need human interaction, I was like, honestly, I'm loving this. Yeah. And that's when I started doing the YouTube thing because I was like, oh, I have tons of free time now, Like I got all this free time that I didn't have before. And now I've figured out how to kind of like manage it at the same time. But like, I don't know.
I just think I don't understand why we as a society, why we as a species, really, because this is pretty common, at least in the developed world. I would say this is a common trait that I don't understand. I don't understand why we've decided that your first 18 to 20 years or so are kind of free-ish, getting relatively less free as you get closer to the 20-ish mark.
It doesn't feel that way though because you're in school. Because
you're in school, right? Yeah, but you're still preparing and things like that. So, like, the average human lives to be, let's just say around 80. The average human lives is around like 78, 80 years old, right? So, the first 20 years, you kind of you're preparing for basically the next, for let's say from 20 to 60, right? So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so 40 years of working as hard as you can and contributing as much as you can to the economy and society and acquiring as much things as you can, working as hard as you can, just so you can spend the last 10 finally enjoying life. Like, I do not understand why we as a species have decided to function that way.
Well, and I think that's why, like, I found like Ghana to be so peaceful, and I think I mentioned to you a lot of times, like, when I was there, I'm like, there's no need for me to be here, you know, like, a lot of, especially white people think, like, oh, I'm going to Ghana, I'm gonna help these people who don't have as much as me, like, that's not even, like, savages, more of just, like, oh, they live in mud huts because, like, they can't afford houses, like, no, they just want to live in their mud huts. They want to live in their mud huts, like, it's just, they found a peaceful way of living, and they even had, like, lighting, like, in the mud huts, and like, you know, they have, a lot of them had cell phones. You know, they have, like, this technology. They just choose to live that way.
They choose to live that way.
Because it's more peaceful. It's a culture thing. It's what they're used to. And, like... Yeah.
And honestly, the whole world just can't... the world can't sustain the whole world living like we do.
No.
Right? Like,
not at all.
There just aren't enough resources on this planet for it to be that way.
No, we are fucking gluttons in this country.
Yeah. I mean, we're not the only ones. China's pretty bad, too.
China's bad, but, like, America uses... I'm pretty sure I'm right in saying America uses twice the amount
of oil, I believe.
Okay.
As China does.
I know we use a lot of water.
Yeah, we use a lot of water too, but China's getting there because I mean they're basically. I think I read somewhere that China has almost ended like hunger in their country, or something like that.
Wow.
Because they're just building these cities out of nowhere, like and just like forcing them to be populated. Like
imagine if we did that.
Yeah, I know, right? I mean. I don't know, like, there are some benefits to having an authoritarian government like that, where, you know, like, if the authoritarian is somewhat manageable. Yeah, exactly. So, like, I wouldn't want to, I don't think I would want an authoritarian government. The government already runs
us, though.
Yeah.
We're already slaves to the government. We just like to flaunt it and be like, oh, but it's America.
At least there's a process that they have to go through.
Yeah, that's true.
Unlike a Chinese president to be like, I'm doing this and it's going to happen. Like at least here in America, there is a theater, like the game, like the show has to play out, and all the actors have to say their lines the right way. And if the play plays out right, then yes, the government gets whatever they want.
Ooh, Kareem, going into a different topic. How do you feel about the president?